through daily interaction with a resource like Clymb, we're able to increase focus time in a classroom and reduce behavioral outbursts, which often, create greater stress.
This is season 1 of the Educator Wellness series. This is episode 4, and our title today is called Quantifying Happiness. So before we get into the topic of today, I do want to introduce myself as well as the series in general. So my name is Nick Esposito. I am a senior design principal here at Education Elements, and I have been, working on a bunch of different projects with a bunch of different districts all over the country. And like Leora and I were talking about beforehand, is that no matter where you are working in a district, educator wellness is relevant. Education Elements, our tagline, our true belief is that schools grow when people grow. And if you look down to those bullet points at the bottom of this slide, these are just a number of the services that we offer school districts in which we're currently working, right? Personalized learning. We had talked about employee retention, equity, strategic planning, as well as, a vision for your instruction on your campus. But the reason that I wanted to bring up this slide is because educator wellness has its fingers in each and every one of these projects. And therefore, we decided to start this series that we're calling the Educator Wellness Series. And it's important to note that it's not called the Teacher Wellness Series, because there are educators all throughout a district, from the bus drivers to to the custodians. Everybody should be a part of this conversation. So the way that we do it is each month we gather to talk about a different element of wellness. And to kind of grease the wheels of our conversation, we bring on a guest speaker, and they've got a ton of research and experience and the work that they're doing to connect to that particular topic. So welcome to episode 4, Quantifying Happiness. Let me first introduce our guest. It's Ashley Williams. So Ashley, you hold like a bunch of different hats. You're an educator, you're a school leader, but you're also an emotional intelligence expert. You've been working for, a decent amount of time now, over a decade in education. But what I love is that you can tell that there's a through line through all of your work. And I'm really excited for you to share that with everybody here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick.
And then really quickly, I got to plug your work that you do. So you founded a company which is now called Clymb, and you support young people in schools through technology to engage and empower them with particular coping skills so that they can deal with some of these issues that we're going to discuss today. If you are all interested in learning more about our work, check out climbup.io.
Thanks, Nick. So Nick, you did a really good framing of the background, but I'm happy to dive a little deeper into my story. So I am a former educator from Baltimore City Public Schools, and also a school leader, in that I was the director of climate and culture of a K-8 charter school. So for a few years, I was responsible for the emotional health of staff and students, and I found it to be an impossible position. And a part of that job was developing programming, or bringing programming into the building to create a healthy, school climate and culture. And I was consistently getting feedback from teachers on specific issues. The first is, if we brought in, or if I developed, say, an SEL curriculum, or brought in some mindfulness resources, the feedback across the board from my teachers was, this is fantastic, and I'm a math teacher. I'm not a mindfulness instructor. Like, this is great for the kids. The kids deserve this, but this is one more thing for me to do. And then another thing was just about the data. A lot of times when we're thinking about improving the overall emotional health, the mental health of a school building, we're bringing in programming that has been validated. They have white papers published, but there's no way to measure the effectiveness or the efficacy of it within that particular school building. And that was like consistent feedback. And so I was like, there has to be a better way. And that's actually the beginning of Clymb. So Clymb is an emotional health software for school age children. We meet young people through technology, like Nick mentioned, where it's interesting to them, and we empower them with coping skills that they can carry around in their pockets. But what makes Clymb different is that it's a plug and play technology. So we have totally eliminated the burden on teachers, right? We're able to personalize the process. The kids are getting the exact resource that's helpful for them. The software is able to understand, for example, Nick, I'm going to throw you out there. Nick needs some support with his responsible decision-making skills or his social awareness. The software will identify that and push a resource to Nick to increase that competency while also providing that stakeholder data. So now we're getting into the ability to quantify that emotional wellness growth over time.
When you go into a school, like what's the process?
Yeah. So Nick, when you go to your doctor, right, your doctor gives you a personalized treatment plan. It's specific to your experience, what's happening with you. And because it's of its specificity to you, your chances of improvement are increased. So Clymb is approaching emotional wellness the way that a doctor approaches physical wellness. And what that means is that when a young person signs into the platform, we do a quick check-in on their emotional status in that moment. Based off of that data, we're able to provide them with wellness resources that meet them exactly where they are. So the software might determine Nick really needs some support with his relationship skills. He's going to get a resource to improve that competency over time. We're collecting and aggregating that data to share it with Nick's teacher, with Nick's counselor, whoever is that adult stakeholder in Nick's life. The school is also getting that aggregate data for all of the children in the building and at the district level the same way. So the idea is that no kid falls between the cracks. From the perspective of an educator, it's really nice to know that Nick is coming into the classroom if he's angry. Like that's going to inform how I engage with Nick. That might inform, even the pedagogy that happens that day. So that information is really helpful. Another thing that's really amazing from the perspective of the teacher is that a lot of times, a lot of the behavioral issues that we're managing, a lot of the focus issues that we're managing in the classroom stem from a lack of emotional intelligence, a lack of social emotional competency, which is a skill developed over time. Through daily interaction with a resource like Clymb, we're able to increase focus time in a classroom and reduce behavioral outbursts, which often, create greater stress for the classroom teacher. So that's like a very high level explanation of how the Clymb platform works.
What is it that you're looking for? Like, what are some of the metrics, the data points that tell the best story?
Several different data points. The first is in the moment mood experience. Am I angry? Am I excited? Am I fearful? Do I feel unsafe? That's one aspect of it. Another data point is the social emotional competency. So CASEL has identified 5 areas or 5 competencies of socio-emotional development and growth. We're able to measure that utilizing a research-backed assessment that was developed at the University of Delaware. That tells us where each young person is in that competency development. So again, where is Nick with his self-awareness? Where is Nick with his relationship skills? Where is Nick with his social awareness? We're able to provide that in an aggregate form, like this is the overall social emotional competency of an individual student or of my school or of my district. And this is the individual competency experience that's happening. And so what we do is provide notifications when a young person we'll provide notifications to an adult stakeholder. We work with the school to decide who is that adult stakeholder. Every school does it differently. In some schools, the guidance counselors or school counselors get notifications, and some it might be like a homeroom teacher. It just depends on the organization. We'll get a notification like if Nick is saying that he has fear 3 days in a row or he feels unsafe, right? You might want to check in with him. So we're providing information to stakeholders when needed and when necessary. And then we also provide training on how to use that data, how to use that aggregate data. What does it mean if Nick has scored a pretty high social emotional competency score 30 days ago, but when he took it today, it plummeted? What might that data be indicating? We also provide training on that.
How do those questions vary based off of age?
So, of course, it's differentiated. The questions complexify the older the kids get. Now, for kids in grades K1 and 2, we can't measure those individual social emotional competency strains. The only thing that we can collect from them is like how they're feeling and teach them what emotions are so that they can greater express themselves. And that's what we're able to collect. So there, of course, is differentiation depending on age group with the way that we take those survey questions as well as the actual resources themselves. Because if I'm in first grade, the resource that I get should not be the same resource that an 11th grader gets, right? So everything is differentiated to meet each grade group.
Do you find that kids are willing to be that vulnerable on a regular basis? Does by asking them in this format, right, like them being able to check in somehow, are they more inclined to, as opposed to like telling someone, in person, right? Like, how does that participation comfort level? Because I worked with high schoolers and I know that they would be moody and wouldn't want to talk. Like, how do you get them to participate?
Yeah, the way that young people participate depends on like where they are. The way that a high school kids participate with Clymb is different than the way that like a middle school or elementary school. We find in general that kids love Clymb. Like somewhere like 65% of youth users said that they enjoyed it so much they would tell a friend about it. And 55% of our users have shown social emotional competency growth over time. So there's that. We were super, super thoughtful about how to make an engaging platform. I mean, there's a little bit of a gamification in it. There are reasons why a young person like Clymb. I'll say that there. And then the older kids really like to use Clymb, like not during a set time during the day, if that makes sense. Like if I'm in 9th or 10th grade, I just like to have access to it so that if I have a moment where I'm feeling like anxious or unsteady, I can log in and have Clymb time, which is what the time is called. In the elementary and middle school setting, there's typically a structured time for use. We always say, if a school can find 10 minutes a day, at least 2 to 3 times a week for Clymb time, that's a perfect amount of time. Sometimes it happens in homeroom, sometimes it's scaffolded throughout the day. And all of the kids have their independent login. So within 10 minutes, I'm logging in, I'm inputting my responses to the survey, I'm getting a resource, I'm partaking in that resource, and then Clymb time is complete for me.
We can all agree, like, time is at a premium. So the fact that this can be done outside of like a teacher's energy level really does help. So going to data informed decisions, right? Like, so a teacher gets this data or a school gets this data, and then I guess now what, right? Like, how do they know what to do next? Is that something that you typically walk them through? Is it aligned to other work that they're already doing in the district? Yeah. What does a teacher do after they get the data?
So again, that just depends on each organization. So when an organization is onboarded to Clymb, they get a Clymb partnership success specialist, and that partnership success specialist like works with the organization from the beginning to understand like what are the organizational goals and how are you using Clymb to get there. So there's already like a map. There's a framework in place prior to getting started, and just like with any data gathering mechanism, the purpose is to identify the key issues in need of reform, right? And then once those issues are identified, setting clear goals and priority and choosing programmatic interventions. And to give you an example of that, if you find that, 60% of your student population is reporting anxiety at least 3 days a week, and that your school counselor to student ratio is inadequate, you have very clear information about where you might, as a district, want to put some wellness dollars the following year. So it's really just dependent again on the goals of the organization. However, that data should be used to identify like key issues that are happening within a district or within a school building, so that new goals and priorities can be established for moving forward.
So what's the impact of this? Like, if you take care of this issue, or if you invest in something like Clymb, what's the payoff? Like, how do we know that, you get the bang for the buck?
Man, that's a really broad question. I'll start broad and then I'll come in.
Yeah.
So we know there was this study done at Columbia University that showed that for every dollar that's invested in SEL or emotional wellness resources for young people, there's an $11 yield in long-term benefits. That includes improved academics. It includes lower engagement with the criminal justice system, higher lifetime earnings, improved mental health. So the data is there, and the data is old. This is not new. Now, when you're talking about like the impact on a specific school or the impact on a specific district on investing dollars into the SEL space, you're looking at improved academic performance. You're looking at healthier climate and culture. You're looking at improved peer relationships among youth. That includes reduced bullying. You're looking at happier teachers, which is really important. The sticking point, though, is developing programming that doesn't increase stress for teachers. So, there are already like SEL services that exist and that have been in school systems for decades. And it's like, are these SEL programs might be helpful to children, but are they improving the teacher experience? And I think that it's time for us to expand what SEL means in a school system, like to include educators as well. Anybody within the school building, like working in education is one of the most high stress professions. And it's an unaddressed issue.
What are some high leverage things that leaders can do to improve wellness in their buildings, right? Because I know leaders are trying to think of, I've only got a limited amount of time and energy to be able to, put something into action. What would you suggest be those things, those first few things through the door?
The first is to prioritize wellness for every child in the building, every educator in the building, every provider in the building. The second is to leverage the policy and funding. I mean, I know that the federal government has earmarked dollars towards this. So leveraging that as it comes through the pipeline, and then establishing an integrated framework for social, emotional, and behavioral health support for everybody, and making sure that the community is clear about what that framework is and where those resources are. A lot of times schools districts are providing resources to teachers and educators, but there's a lack of clarity about it. Like, I just don't know what is available to me. So making sure that there's clarity about that and that it's easy to access, and then enhancing that literacy, that mental health literacy, and reducing whatever stigmas might be in place, and whatever barriers to access might be in place.
Miss Bracy, thank you so much for asking a question in the chat. She says, as a high school educator, I would like to propose this to my school leaders. What are some suggestions that you have for someone who's in that boat?
Miss Bracy, what are like the pain points that you guys are having?
I work in a urban high school here in Montgomery, and of course we have a lot of issues that are tied to the mental health and emotional intelligence of our students. So, just trying to get students basically to deal with a lot of the social issues that they're having, so that it's not taken away from their learning and instruction time, because we spend a lot of time dealing with those issues. So I just don't know where to start to actually help my school leaders and everyone at my school to actually be proactive in that area.
So if I were you, I would say exactly what you just said.
Okay.
You really did frame it like you understand what's happening, and just posit that like this is what's happening, and this might be a solution that you might want to check out. It's low effort. There's no pressure to move forward. Just check it out. It might be helpful to our kids.
Got you. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do you want to let us know about Clymb? Like, what is cost? How does it work? How do they get started to work with you guys?
Yeah. So the cost is per pupil, and there's a scale. So I just put in the website. If you go to the website and hit contact us, we can send you, somebody will actually send you a pricing model, so you have clarity about that. You
had talked about resources on Clymb. So like, they input their data and then it gives them stuff. Can you give us an example of what one of those looks like, just to kind of paint the picture for everybody?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll give you two examples. One is very familiar. The first is a coping cue. So these are techniques that were developed by therapists. So what do you do if you have racing thoughts? What do you do if you feel unsafe? How do you complete the stress cycle? So it's informative audio. And then another type of content, and there are multiple different types of content in the platform because young people have different learning modalities, is like a mindfulness audio. And all of the content is categorized by those competencies. So you can search for all self-awareness content or all relationships content. And again, most of them are video content and or audio content, with some more active engaging content where the kids can like participate. And it's anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's like really quick, short bursts of information, knowledge to build their awareness. Absolutely love that. So, yeah, once again, thank you so much. Have a great day. And Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Nick. Take care, everyone.